Get our little party started. Well, everybody, hello and welcome to the Next Job Search Council. We have invited with us today Tracy Judge, who I've known for 5 years now. And Tracy runs Soundings. So you're going to have to explain Soundings Connect, all the differences between these things, and is out in the job market, freelancer, gig economy, and understands what's happening in the world. So I brought her on to talk to us a little bit about negotiation, how you price yourself in the market, and how all of this stuff is working these days. So Tracy, give us a little overview of Soundings.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. So Soundings is a talent platform we focus on the business events industry and so anything events and marketing related. And we have, right now, we have two brands under Soundings. One is Soundings Connect, which is our Soundings Connect, which is our client-facing brand. And we work with our customers to help find, in most cases, agile talent solutions. So help match them with freelance talent. And we handle all the onboarding with talent, all the talent search, interviewing when we put candidates in front of our customers. And then we work directly with the customer, and then we find talent from our talent community that we pair with the customer. And then we make sure we handle all the payments for our talent. We can pay W-2 if the role can't be a 1099 role. All of our talent is paid weekly. If you're a freelancer, that's a really rare thing to have. So that is the core to our business. We have a talent community called Soundings Thrive, and a big part of our business and what differentiates us from the other people in our industry is, our competition in the industry is that we really build a community around talent and around freelancing, where we invest a lot of time back into our freelance community. And essentially our goal is to create an atmosphere that has all of the things people love about working with the company, but still giving them professional freedom. So everything under Soundings Thrive, we're really supporting that talent community. With that, we do some full-time recruiting as well. It's not our core competency, but because we have such a big talent pool, a lot of people come to us, and a lot of the customers we work with, we know really well. So when they have full-time roles to fill, we help them recruit them as well.
That's amazing. Okay, so let me start on the freelancer side of things and ask a lot of people when they go into, okay, I'm just looking for a real job while I'm going to take some gigs on the side, then they try to do some math and just replace what their current salary was. What's the real way that you should set your rate?
It depends. There's a lot of things that come into play. And, if you want to figure out what your hourly rate is, first of all, what it was to compare, usually what we do is we take whatever your salary was and you times it by usually 1.3, like 1.25 to 1.3. That pulls in like your benefits and vacation and other comp as well. And then you look at how many hours did you work in that year, right? So this is something, and I see this in event marketing roles a lot, because a lot of the more senior event marketing roles, when you think about that and you divide the salary by the regular number of hours in the year, which usually we use 1900, it comes a much higher number. What you learn is a lot of people left those event marketing jobs because they were burned out, because they were working 60 to 70 hours a week, right?
Right.
So a lot of those higher level roles then are harder to fill at those comparable rates. So that's one thing for people to think about, that we have to have that conversation, is that's what you're making, salary, but really you were getting paid this big salary because of how much you were expected to work as well. So I think it's like taking those things into consideration, but what feels about right to you. But that's, to start, I would, take that, whatever your salary was, times it by 1.3, divide it by the number of hours. If you worked a pretty normal schedule, use 1900, and that's what I would say your hourly rate comparable is, right?
Okay. And so when it comes to the benefits and things like that, how you have to I mean, what do you even think about putting aside for that?
Yeah, so, well, that's the other thing, right? Like that is what your rate was. So then you
Yeah.
have to think about now, like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to work all those hours because some of it is going to be business development and there's more risk for you. And then looking at, okay, if I'm getting benefits off the open market, how much are they? So you want to think about adding those things back in when you think about your rate. And you also want to remember the company has less risk with you being a freelancer than an employee. And also, like, you're not on, like, that's why when, private equity, for instance, will say, take money, like, get rid of money, get rid of headcount, right? Because you're getting that money off of your books. So
Mhm.
there's reasons people play with how they're paying. So take those things into consideration as well when you're figuring out your rate. Um, Benefits, do you mean how to find them or like how
Well,
to?
like, what do you put aside? So let's say I'm gonna work for 50 bucks an hour. And so if I need to go figure out what I should really be planning for, I mean, I guess if I'm truly going freelance and it's gonna be a little while, then I need to go find an independent healthcare provider and figure out exactly how much they're gonna cost. And then I'm gonna put that into my hourly rate, right?
Yeah, you want to think about what that's going to cost you as well. So it depends, like obviously age is a big factor and what kind of plan you want, but usually we see plans between like $300 and $700. So you got to think about that you're taking that. But there's a lot besides that, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
going to be a freelancer, what are those other expenses that you're going to have to pay? Insurance is one, like you couple $100 a month. If you want to be 1099, like freelance, then you're going to need in most cases um, at least general liability insurance, sometimes E&O insurance. Um, so you want to take into consideration that piece of it. You'll probably need an accountant that's going to cost you money and it'll be a little bit more complicated than before. Um, all of your benefits that you had that you still want to retain. And then there's other costs.
Computer and things like that
Yeah,
too, because now it's all
computer.
yours.
Yeah, all of those business expenses. If there's any like marketing expenses you need, or if you want your Canva or you want like a website and things like that, that you want to
Yeah, this
think.
is all great. So because I've never thought about this before as far as an hourly rate, where I'm like, okay, great. Well, I'm just going to do it for 100 bucks an hour or $200 an hour or whatever. But actually trying to build out, okay, if I need all of these things, then I should be charging that. So how negotiable is that actual rate? If I go, you know what, with all this stuff in there, I'm actually 150 bucks an hour. So if I go, do I just go say that and now that's official? Or do people actually come back and negotiate and say, actually, we're only going to pay 75 bucks an hour and now you have a choice?
Yeah, it's like it's your own business. So it's like, right, it's like
Okay.
product marketing in a way. And we're trying to figure out, where do you want to be in the market? Where do you want to sit? I think for individuals, you want to think about like, what is your intent? What is your purpose in this role? And because I suggest I never want to drive anybody's rate down. Like in this industry, like I feel like it's part of our responsibility to uphold rates, right? Because we're underpaid as an industry in general, and we don't want to let people drive rates down. There is a reality to how far we can bring rates up, and there also is a reality to how much customers can pay. So I think if you're negotiating just with a customer, you have to think about like, do I trust them when they say that's what their budget is, right? And is this piece of business worth it for me? Is there other stuff that's coming out of it, like connections, experience? A lot of times, people don't have the exact experience that someone's looking for, but they have most of it, right? But that piece of it that you don't have is something for you to learn. So you're getting paid to be educated, essentially, right? So taking those things into consideration when you're picking your rate. We work really close with our customers and our talent on that. There's sometimes where we know like this is where the ceiling is, and we'll say like, here's why we think this is a good role for you. but,
Okay.
but no, if you don't want to take it, totally get it. I know it's below, and we can kind of be that filter to the talent to say, hey, here's why we think it's of value to you beyond the compensation, and also to the customer of like, here's why this person is worth more, or this person might be more expensive, but you know what, we've seen them work 25% faster than other people as well. So I don't say this to sell any of you on running your business through me, but like that is the value of having someone that's like negotiating for you, right? That
Yeah.
is like a trusted partner that is like we're like mediators in a way, right? How do we get this
Right.
to work for everyone? And obviously, like we always want both sides to benefit. Otherwise, it's usually not a good match.
Yeah. And I know you're not a tax expert, but we do have the question of how do you approach income tax if you have a mix of 1099 and W-2 jobs? Do you have any guidance there?
It's talk to your, so some of when we run workers' classification compliance checks on every role and every person now. So when we first did that, people are concerned that we're always 1099. So they go to your accountant and talk to them about it. But it isn't a concern. In fact, it can help when you're a 1099 to have some W-2 as well. Because the W-2, when you are a W-2, like we pay 10% into our, like it's about 10%, right? Into the taxes of a freelancer, of a contractor. So some of that is getting paid for you, and then some of the some you're contributing to it as well. So when you're a W-2 and a 1099, you're actually paying some of the taxes as you go,
Right.
which is helpful. I think if you want to be super safe, I think 30% is safe for how much of what you're making if you're a 1099 to put away, and then you can offset it with what you're making as a W-2. But
Okay.
accounts have all different tax strategies, states matter, like there's a lot that goes into it, but
Sure.
um
But I assume this is around like I have a real job and then I have a side gig. And so my real job is paying employment taxes for me. And then my side gig is a business and I'm filing all of the businessy things that I'm filing, right?
yeah, so yeah, in that case, like if you're just side gigging and you usually get a tax refund, depending how much you're making in your side gig, right? But yeah, still, if you save 30% and put that on the side, you know, you might be able to return money to yourself at the end of the year.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the full-time job negotiation world. So fewer, I mean, it's supposed to be more and more jobs are actually putting a range in there, but what I'm seeing is the range is 80,000 to 170,000. You're like, sweet, I'll take the 170,000. Thank you. So do you have any insight into why people are putting these ridiculous ranges?
Well, I mean, a big part of that is because of the laws on now you have to. So you have to have a range. So I think they're getting away with it by putting in really big ranges in.
Mhm.
Larger companies, sometimes it's just also that there's like a salary band for the type of role it is.
Mhm.
So there's this salary band for this role. Well, it might be the salary band, but like another department may have higher salaries than that. So
Uh,
you see it like in when it's larger organizations like big corporate, often the number that's going in is the salary band that it falls in. And then others, I think part of it is just, you know, they have to do it, so they make it wide. And I'm like, I see it more now than ever. And because business shifts so quick and like infrastructure is changing. So people are trying to figure out now how do we operate events in this new world, and how they were structured before to do it isn't necessarily how they need to be structured moving forward. So I think sometimes it's that like companies are open to the level of the role, if that makes sense, depending
yeah.
on like as they're interviewing, you kind of learn more about what you need, and they're open to different levels based on the person and things like that. So I think that they leave it wider.
Okay, so if you come in and the question is, how much are you looking to make? Obviously you don't want to go down from where you were last time, but perhaps you got laid off because now they're trying to eliminate the higher paid people and bring in all the youngins and pay them a whole lot less. And so if you come in and say, I want to make 180,000 plus I need bonus, plus I need benefits, plus I need all of these things. Do you start high with where you were last time? Do you go above where you were last time? Do you hedge it? Like, what's the best approach to that?
Yeah, number one, I don't know if this is in all states. I don't know if this is federal right now, but I know in California, like you don't like it's illegal for employers to ask what you were making at your last job. I know in California. So that's one thing that if you get asked that, you don't have to respond to. They shouldn't even be asking it. So know that. I mean, for the salary range piece of it, like if they're playing a wide range game, then like you can also play a wide range game too. But I think knowing like if you know where, where your very bottom would be, and that's saying that it was a great rest of the comp package, then you could say like this is the lowest I would think about from a from a salary standpoint, but like there has to be a lot of upside for me in other ways. And for me, when I'm negotiating with people or negotiating on our clients' behalf, the thing that I don't like is when they come back higher than we talked about, right? So you want to leave yourself the room to better understand the role and better understand what the expectation is of you before you commit to that number. So leave it, leave it wide. And I think that is really, okay to say when you say, hey, I really want to understand before I give you a number what the expectation is for this, right? Because there's a lot of goes into consideration for me, like work-life balance, for instance, right? Like there's a cost for me losing that work-life balance as well. So just being really open and honest about it of like, I'm not just looking at this as a number. Yes, I need to make this much at the very minimum, right, for my salary, regular salary, but there's a lot that goes into play with this, and I'm looking at it holistically for my life.
Are companies setting salary based on the geography of the person?
You know,
Tracy, yes, they are.
I know it's a tough one, like because I know that, like, for instance, I'm in San Diego, right? Like our minimum wage is higher, like everything is higher. So yeah, so DMCs, for instance, are going to have to set higher rates here
Yeah.
because also the like minimum wage for salary is higher. So if somebody wants to be salary in California, it's like over 65,000 now, I think. So
hmm
there are that does come into play. The larger organizations, yes, it's their salary. And I know this from some of my, friends that work remote. They don't want to move to certain locations because they're going to they would have to take a salary cut by moving
Right.
there. For us, for freelancers, it doesn't usually impact rate. It's almost on the flip side where it's like, okay, well, if we know this rate is, lower than they want, then we look for places that cost of living is less. Because that's usually what people take into consideration when they're looking for what to make from a rate standpoint.
hmm Yeah, there's a comment that Austin's an interesting city because we fall into different bands with different companies. With some we're a low pay region and others say we're as high as Chicago.
That is so interesting.
Okay, so a salary, when if it's got a set salary in the, or very small range, how much flexibility do you really have when you go in? Because if the job is just a total dream job, but it's 15K lower than you would be willing to take, can you go in and fight for it, or should you just give it up?
Oh, that's a hard one. I mean, I, I think like going in, you just ask that question, right? Like, hey, oh, I want to learn more about this job, but if there is going to be no wiggle room at all, like, then it might not be, the right opportunity for me. Most of the
Yeah.
time, if they think you're a really good candidate for it, they're going to tell you that there's flexibility, and finding, whatever it is, like a 10 grand on $100,000 salary, something like that for the right candidate, it isn't always hard, or they can make it up in different ways, like bonus, like we see, uh, I'm gonna say bridge, but it's just like a guaranteed bonus for year one, like things like that that you can negotiate in.
You said guaranteed bonus. Is that something? Is that real?
Yeah, I've made the mistake paying guaranteed bonuses myself. I've lost a lot of money doing that. Which I was kidding. But no, it is real. It really, I see it a lot on contracts, especially if it's sales positions, because it's going to be harder for you to make that target in the very beginning while you're learning the business and building a market. So there are guaranteed commissions. They might be called like a bridge in the beginning of it. And also if it's like a whatever 10% bonus structure for how, and you have things to hit, that yeah, people will guarantee that if they can't, if they can't hit the salary requirement,
Right. Okay.
they're not raising the salary. They're different metrics, so they're not raising the salary. It doesn't have to be committed the year after, but same thing with like signing bonuses.
Sure. That's what I was going to ask, like difference between sign-on bonus and company bonus. So sign-on bonus, you're paid pretty much within the first 60, 90 days, whatever that sign-on thing is. But then end of year bonus, that's any company I've ever worked for. That's not guaranteed. Like there's, in the last how many years we've paid out bonuses, but it is considered a bonus because it is a bonus. And like only if we make the money will you receive that money.
I don't
So
see.
how realistic do you need to be when you put that in your comp package in your head? If they're going, oh, it's a lower salary, but our bonuses pay out at this much. Like,
I'd get them to commit to some of it. So one, I don't see signing bonuses very much anymore unless it is a negotiation, like unless people are leaving money on the table where they're leaving.
oh, okay.
So that's another thing to think about, is like for salary, is like, are you leaving money on the table by leaving when
Like
you're,
RSUs or anything that's vested at your other or not vested yet.
yeah. Or like, or you have to be there you still have to be there to get your bonus from the year prior or stuff like
Right.
that. So that's one thing, definitely to negotiate. But I've made deals with people with guaranteed bonuses at 3 months or 6 months, right? Because it's like, okay, if we get through this and we decide that 3 month period, right? And we decide we're right for each other, then we'll pay this bonus out. And it was when like we couldn't meet what the salary requirements are. So smaller companies, you have more leverage to do what you need to do, where bigger companies are more structured in that. So like a lot of times they know the things they might be able to do, but they can't get creative with you.
Yeah. Are you seeing a lot of temp to hire or is it pretty much either full-time or contract?
You know, I love temp to hire. I do. I think we do, a good amount of it. And when I first started Soundings, I thought like freelancers are freelancers, and full-time people are full-time people. And when we had one candidate early on that they wanted a freelancer, and it was during COVID, and they wanted someone in the production space, and the match was so good that before they even started, they said, we really like her. Can we create a position? Right. And in that case, we placed the person full-time because she was like, this is the right role for me, I really like it as well. So, um, but especially people like that are in transition career-wise, or if you are a freelancer that you're like, I would maybe take a full-time job if it was right. And we get that a lot. Like, we might have the budget for this person later, or we're just not ready to make the decision, or I need to justify the head count. And our customer says that. So then we make sure when we source freelance talent, we're like, okay, who might consider full-time later? And we know that from the front, but like, it's awesome because it's like anything else, right? Like, you get to date before you get married. And when you come in on a freelance role, you're not getting invested in the culture as much. You're not doing all the onboarding stuff. It's not as expensive for the company, right? You actually get to see, like, what is the job I'm hired for, like, going to be like, and what is my team going to be like, and things like that. What is the culture of this company? So both sides really get to, like, see each other and understand each other and see if it's a fit before they're hired. And if it's not a fit, it's not like everyone's like, okay, contract's done, like, not a fit, like,
Yeah.
move on, instead of it being like someone having, someone quitting a job or someone getting fired from a job or laid off from a job. So I think it's way more realistic in today's workplace, and especially in events, because a lot of times, like, we don't know what we're getting into until we get into it, and things change so fast, right? Like, at no fault to anyone, it's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
So it's just a way for, I think, people to, like, it's okay to feel things out.
Mhm. Do you think equity is something that we should be looking at negotiating in, especially for the smaller companies, or is it too risky?
I don't know that it's that I mean, it's definitely risky for both sides, right? But, like, it depends also if they have that structure with other people, because
Right.
putting that comp structure together is really, really difficult, right? And
Mhm.
there's a lot that goes into it, and, like, especially smaller companies, like, they just might not have the time to do it then, or the resources to figure it out then. And there's a lot that thought that goes into, like, you have to gamify both sides of it from, like, a protection standpoint. So, I personally think, like, go in, and if it seems like it's not something that's an option now, go in, and, like, if you like it there and you're working your ass off, then you have more leverage than when you're negotiating before even being part of the company, right?
Right, right. Okay, so if the job has been posted and they didn't put a pay range, do you go through the interview process and wait to see, or do you just hit it up front and say, before we go any further, what's the range here? Because I don't want to waste anybody's time.
I mean, I think it's all strategy, right? Like, it depends on what you're doing. Like, if you want practice going through an interview process, then do it. Like, like, they're not telling you the salary. So if at the end you're like, this isn't close, and you wanted experience, then you got the experience. Shame on them for not asking right away, right? But if it is something that you're, like, searching hard for, and really looking for a role, then maybe not, you want to know right away what it is. But I think it, you see, like, post-it salaries can be an $80,000 range. So
Yeah, I think, you used to be able to tell though, you could, coordinator, manager, senior manager, director, senior director, and you kind of knew where they were. But these days you see something posted as director and then it come to find out it's 70 grand and you're like, okay, that's nowhere near what a director salary should be. So, but I know that, everybody wants a job. So you're kind of like, you want to go through it, you want them to love you, and then you hope it matches in the end. So, but then on the upfront, you don't want to scare them away. So you never really know how to approach it.
yeah, I mean, I would say best practice is probably, like,
Find
getting it.
out.
Yeah, find out first.
Mhm.
But again, it just depends. If you want interview practice, can I ask you, like, what do you
Yeah, yeah. Anybody on the team have any questions for Tracy? No questions.
Right.
Because I could just sit here and ask her questions all day long. So I want to give anyone an opportunity. Yeah, go ahead, Trace.
I would love for to kind of just pull on a thread from the conversation. You mentioned towards the end, you were talking about people who are looking to permanent work, but are, you know, currently in the interim open to freelance or contract gigs. And then also on the flip side, people who are working more contract and freelance who might get pulled, you know, who you're thinking about for those maybe conversion opportunities. I'm in the first camp. I just left a full-time job. I'm sorting myself out right now and actively applying, but I'm just open to all conversations. I'm talking to anyone about a freelance or a contract opportunity as well. And so I was just wondering if you have specific advice for people who are kind of navigating both sides of the edge, right?
I mean, I can speak for like on my side of things, like on the freelance, if you're have people helping you find freelance work, like I just tell them to be honest with us and be honest with our team because we fill every type of situation, right? And that if we know that like you're flexible in what you're thinking about, or you eventually want to go full time, but you know, we have this month-long project that like we're like, okay, this project's a month. If you get offered a full-time job, are you gonna see it through? Right. And we just have those
Right.
really honest conversations up front. And yeah, people can lie to us, but we really hope, right, that like we're having like we'll help you make sure you're protecting us as well. And I don't know, it's just kind of the person I am that I think those conversations up front um are really good to have. I think that, you know, people understand and we've understood, right? When someone's like an opportunity came up, I couldn't pass up and they take it. But like if that isn't the right opportunity, 3 months later, they're looking for freelance work again, like
Kind of burn
probably
that bridge.
give it to them,
Mhm.
right? Like not the first person we're
Mhm.
going to go to because there's that like lost trust. So you know, I think situational, but I think that's also what's good about working with an agency that's helping to place you because there's lots of different opportunities and having that honest conversation, you can have someone that's looking out for the right opportunities for you.
So what's your recommendation? Should everybody like, do you pay to be part of Soundings? Do you just submit? How does it work?
No, you just submit. So you can go soundingsconnect.com and then find work that'll tell you a little bit more about us. And then you can join our community. The community right now um, is free. We have some stuff we'll be announcing soon. So some additional features that will go along with that and additional products on the career side of stuff, which is we're super excited about. But yeah, anyone will always keep the free membership. If you do that, we look at we don't post roles unless we're having trouble filling them because we have a lot of people in our community and we ask questions in your profile that help us narrow things down. So make sure to go through and fill out your whole profile because that's where we first like, you know, look at candidates. Also, we do an orientation every month. So showing up for that is a good thing if you're looking for work. Not only do you get in front of our team, but there's other people there that are looking for work. So you start to build a community. And then I look out for intent to learn. Like we invest in people that invest in themselves. So if you're showing up at events that we're doing, or we see you on an event like this when we're on it, or we see you're getting certifications and your profile's updating, that's one of the things that we look for as well.
Oh, that's good advice. Okay. So question on the certifications. Do you see across the board people that have them, are they making more money or is it just easier to get them in? Or how do you feel about the CMMs and CMPs and CEMs and blah, 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 alphabet soup?
I was at the Event Industry Council event this year, so they did talk about this a little bit, and there is some data on if you have the certification, you can get, you know, X amount more after it. So, you know, I don't I don't know. I look at it as like, are you growing yourself? Are you going to continue to grow? Are you staying relevant in the marketplace? And somebody like that is worth more to me, right? Like that's kind of my mentality when it comes to a lot of the certifications. When I'm looking at it, it's more of like you're paying for a person that will continue to grow with you in the role and stays relevant. So I think it is good for you to do.
I had one hiring manager tell me that someone who had like 42 letters after their name, she said, I actually would not want to hire that person because I'm going to be spending so much money on them for continuing education credits that it's going to be a distraction to their job. And I was like, wow, I'd never actually thought of it that way. It could be a detractor if you have too many things listed by your name.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I think that's like also like a little obsessive compulsive, right? Like I think that tells a lot more about a person than just that. I think just like wanting, the need to want to grow and learn. And if you're going to do certifications and you're going to spend your time doing them, like have it be something that you really want to learn about, or like you want to see, like, is this a path I want to go down, or is this another skill set I want to add to my toolbox as a freelancer? Like choose things that are meaningful for you. Like don't just choose it because you think it looks good.
Mm-hmm. So, I've been seeing association salaries go a little higher than they used to be. And I wouldn't say super close to the high level corporate salaries, but actually getting quite competitive. Are you seeing that gap kind of like they're starting to become a little bit more reasonable in the association world? Because it used to be like, oh, sorry, we pay 30K and that's what we pay.
Yeah, they're definitely going up some. And I think it is also, we see it in Chicago a lot because Chicago, DC is, where a lot of the associations are. The, the fight for talent in those areas is real, but also that I think the type of talent that's needed is different. And associations, for instance, in marketing, right? Associations are starting to get more sophisticated in marketing, or they have to be more sophisticated in marketing because now, like, and it, like especially over like the last 3 to 5 years, like what we expect as consumers is so much different, right? And how
Yeah.
how we engage with each other has changed so much. So from the association customer is much different, and now associations are looking at new generations of customers who want to be talked to different. So in that way, now they're going, if you want that experience, it's starting to get leveled up to like a marketing function role.
Right.
So
Which is
that's,
banded higher than just an event logistics role. Yeah.
yeah, 'cause you won't find, like, you're just not going to find good talent for what you need, especially if you're like early in the, if it's so an association is like in the early stages of innovating like their marketing strategy, right? Or their customer experience. Like you're not someone low level, like you don't just plug people in and then there's someone to teach the job to.
Yeah. Yeah, so most of our folks within Club Ichi are on the B2B corporate event marketing side. And so the event positions actually sit within a marketing organization. So they tend to be pay banded a little bit higher than if they were, just an event logistics type of role in an association or something like that. So when we're looking for roles, do you think that there's a specific kind of call out to make sure that the organization is hiring in kind of that realm that has a pay band that will move you up? Like, what are the specific ways that you can tell that out of a job description? Do you think there are any?
I mean, an organization, like in an organization.
Yeah. So how can you make sure that the role is banded, paid, and respected, like it's part of a marketing organization that's going to drive profit?
Well, one of the things I think is to like, we'll do this with customers when I'm trying to understand their business, right? Like we go in and we look at, like, go and search on LinkedIn, right? Like what are the titles, what are the roles, and what can you piece together to understand how that works? And then who do you know within that organization, obviously, to be able to know that. And then every organization is different and it's constantly changing where those things sit. So I think like that's a question you probably want to ask early on, is like, hey, how are you structured
Yeah.
from a standpoint? But I do want to go back to, Liz, what you said about most of your people are corporate event marketing professionals, because I think it's really an interesting time in events, and that, you know, associations need corporate event marketing professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that is, but though a lot of corporate event marketing professionals don't look at association jobs, and a lot of it is because of the past pay ranges.
Correct. Yeah. Which is why when I started to see the jobs move up a little, I'm like, aha, okay.
Yeah, I
There's a
actually,
chance.
and I would love to talk to you about this further, because this was one of the things too, with SEMA. It's like there's such, I like look at this potential, right, to integrate corporate event marketing and association marketing. And I think there's this fear that corporate event marketers, want to work with corporate event marketers. But if we start merging the two, it really should be a very similar role, right? The
Mm-hmm.
product is different in the association. The association product is really what you're selling. But I think that both sides learning from each other, and especially the association side learning from corporate event marketers, is super important. And it's super important for the evolution of associations as well. And if corporate event marketing can prove to the value of what they do to associations, right, then there'll be more money spent in doing that.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the things we look at as well from a freelance standpoint, right? Is like for an association that's trying to innovate that space and look at it different, look at customer experience and customer acquisition. Like that is a great role for someone that came out of the corporate event marketing world that is now freelancing, to get in there and help the organization understand that. So I think cross-pollination could be really, really good from the corporate event marketing side and the association marketing side.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the evolution of associations, and the ones that their core competency is education. That's why they exist. So they have an education department, a meetings department, a membership department, and and that's kind of how they do it. The meetings people are the logistics folks, and they don't get involved in the education because they're creating the education over in the education department, et cetera. And then you've got the ones that are all about advocacy, and they're out there doing government lobbying and things like that. And so they have a lot more on the legal side, and the meetings again tend to be very logistics on the execution, but the content's coming from the legislative lobbying team. And then you have the ones that are actually trying to be money-making organizations, where the marketing folks and the event folks and the education folks are actually working together. And I think those are the ones that we're starting to see elevate what the roles are within each of the departments. But there's the question of, does it pull them away from what their association mission was? And so that's, like you said, that's a whole other conversation.
I could talk about that. I could talk about that all day long with associations, but associations are generally, what I'm seeing now, starting to operate more as businesses, right? More as corporations, and for better and worse. So I think that there's some really good things that come out of that. I do think that there's a lot that's lost in that. And like that mission can be forgotten about as well. So it's looking for that balance. But if there's no members, if there's nobody buying the education, right? If there's no one showing up at the events, there is no money. And in today's world, none of that happens without marketing. And most associations, it's the in-person, right? It's the in-person events, whether it be at the chapter level or the global level, that is really that stickiness that keeps attendees coming back and back. And that is why I think associations should be recruiting corporate event marketers.
Have you ever seen an association role have a salary that's tied to growth and profitability, and actually be able to go up as this person, would take a role? I've never seen that.
It's a really good question, Liz, but this would be a good little research project for us, because and I don't know what level has to be, but a lot of the association, it's public. they're executive. So we could look at what level, like is a CMO for an association a public salary?
Interesting.
Yeah, we could start to look at that, or just ask people that have been on boards and stuff, like what have they seen? Because yeah, it's, why shouldn't, why
Yeah.
should, but it also is like, what is growth? Like, is the problem is like the the metrics of growth, what should they be to make sure that they're still mission based, right? Because when you have crazy growth targets as an association, that can also hurt the members of the association as well, right? Because there's a lot of expense and time that goes into growing an association, whether you're growing it organically or acquiring. This is a whole different conversation.
It is. So we got off salary negotiation.
Liz.
It's fascinating because when you are thinking about the salary and what you want, then thinking about the type of company that you're going to go for, what the role is tied to. And if the role is tied to revenue, then there is much higher potential for your salary being higher. So, I mean, I think it does all fold into how you think about salary and negotiation when you go into it.
No. It 100% does go into that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much for all your insights. And team, do you have any final questions for Tracy? And we'll remove our spotlights here.